If you watch the WWE Money in the Bank prediction video that I did on Wednesday, you know that I did not pick LA Knight to win the match. I picked him as one of the likely favorites alongside Seth Rollins and, yes, El Grande Americano. But I ultimately went a different direction. You can watch the video to find out who I picked in that one. But I also said I think I can give you a pretty strong argument as to why LA Knight should actually be the person to win this match. And why maybe LA Knight has to win this match. He doesn't have a choice at this point. He must win the Money in the Bank briefcase. And we're going to go into all the reasons why. If you start off with, he said it himself in a recent promo. LA Knight is in his third straight Money in the Bank ladder match. He has lost in back-to-back years. As we know, 2023, it was Damian Priest who won that match. Last year, it was Drew McIntyre who won the match and quickly tried to get his cash-in attempt. But now, for a third straight year, LA Knight finds himself in this Money in the Bank ladder match. And so, if you're telling the story of LA Knight, and you're talking about this big babyface star who gets lots of great reactions from the fans, and for a third straight year, he comes up short, just as he's come up short in other sort of big, high-profile matches he's had previously. Think back to the Universal Championship match he had against Roman Reigns. There have been other kind of big, high-profile matches. Yes, he's won the United States title a couple times. He's had some United States title runs that I think have probably been a little bit less than thrilling when it comes to the overall body of work with those particular runs. Probably not all LA Knight's fault. Probably just a matter of having challengers that can sort of, give you those top-tier feuds. That's always important. We say that especially when you have those babyface champions coming out of big moments where they triumph and win the title. It's the same thing we talked about last year for Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. You have to give him something big to sustain that title run after the biggest moment of the story is him actually winning it. And so, you could certainly have some criticism of some of the runs he's had as United States champion. But that's kind of the point here, is that at some point for LA Knight, who is going to turn 43 years old in November, if it's going to happen, it has to happen now. I don't know that we're looking at LA Knight a year from now in a fourth straight Money in the Bank ladder match, unless this is just a running joke they want to have. But I don't think we're looking at it a year from now and saying, all right, he's a top-tier candidate, and this is the year for LA Knight. This kind of has to be the moment, if you really think about it, where he finally comes through and wins this to now put us in a position where we view him as someone who actually can follow through and deliver on being a world champion in this WWE/TKO era. And if you really think about it, he fits that criteria. Because why? You can draw some parallels between LA Knight and a current champion in WWE, and that is Jey Uso. Think back to the Royal Rumble. We all talked about it. It was a surprising win for Jey Uso at the 2025 Royal Rumble. But I did the video after and I said it probably shouldn't surprise us all that much when you think about what the top priorities are right now, and especially when you look back into the past in WWE history and understand that it wasn't always the guys who were doing 5-star matches every single night. Those weren't always the guys who were having the championship, carrying the company, and necessarily selling the most tickets or the most merch. Jey Uso, big merch seller. LA Knight continues to be a big merch seller. And he continues to, as I said a minute ago, get great reactions from fans. And so, from that perspective, he does kind of fit into the model of Jey Uso in that, all right, we understand that maybe there are some fans out there that are going to criticize the moves and all this other stuff in ring. But when it comes to the star potential, when it comes to the reaction, and when it comes to the ticket sales and merch, here's a guy who's still doing pretty well there. And so again, someone who's going to turn 43 years old, and knowing that he's gone through kind of this phase in WWE over the past several years, where he's been right there on the cusp. He's never really been in that position where they pushed him as the guy or one of the top guys. Now, I know you can say, well, again, he had some of those matches in high-profile opportunities, but it still always kind of felt like there have been, several other people a little bit further, and they feel a little bit more invested in those guys versus an LA Knight who got himself over with the crowd basically on his own. He went out, sort of reinvented himself. And in the past, at times, WWE's not like that, but now they clearly are okay with that because he is someone who, again, is driving some of the financial aspects, which is very important, as we talked about, in this particular era. And so, when you really tie it all together, could this be a Jey Uso type situation? Here's a guy who has put in the work to, again, kind of reinvent himself to where the crowd cannot deny sort of that person's rise, just as it was with Jey. Are they going to do the same thing with LA Knight? Where now, okay, he wins the Money in the Bank briefcase, and think about just the whole kind of atmosphere surrounding the idea of LA Knight cashing in, right? The music is perfect for it. You know, all of a sudden that particular theme hits, and the crowd's going to go wild just as they do every time they hear the music hit for this guy right now. That's kind of your cash-in type theme that LA Knight has. Sort of immediately you identify with it. It's not like some of these other themes where you have no idea who's walking out. So that can be something where, all right, that gives you that big moment. WWE's about moments. They've told us that. It gives you a big moment. If LA Knight's music hits, you know what's about to go down. It's as simple as this. And I know some people are going to be like, well, hang on a second. They can't just use this, right? You right now, in your headphones, if you're listening via headphones, can hear Michael Cole already calling LA Knight cashing in and or winning Money in the Bank. Because they're in Los Angeles. LA Knight in Los Angeles for a third time's a charm. You can hear Michael Cole using all these different phrases to describe the exhilaration of seeing LA Knight at the top of the ladder holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. It ties in perfectly. LA, third time's a charm. They can do all of this kind of stuff. That, again, is part of the presentation in WWE. These are the things they like to do. So, that's a smaller aspect, but it is something that they could certainly play with here in the third straight match, as we said, for one of their, kind of upper-tier talents and upper-tier stars in the company. And so, from that perspective, who needs this match the most? You could certainly argue that someone like Andrade could need this more than anyone, but if you really put it all together, LA Knight may actually be the person that needs this more than anyone, because if he loses again, then what? Does he just go back to SmackDown and all of a sudden he's in the same spot he's been in, where he's kind of in that United States title picture, which we know they've kind of been teasing this stuff back and forth between LA Knight, Jacob Fatu, of course, as the new United States champion, LA Knight, and Damian Priest, which again, these are all guys who have tied into that United States title. But what a way this would be to put LA Knight immediately into that situation where at some point you feel like he can win the world title. And that's been kind of the sentiment from fans in the past, but now it may be now or never. And I think that's where you don't have to do this right away. You could do this 6 months down the road. You could do this 1 year down the road, whatever you want to do. But I don't think this is something that would probably be wasted if you did give LA Knight the opportunity here, because like I mentioned, if he just goes back to SmackDown and he stays in the same spot he's been in and he loses again for a third straight time in Money in the Bank, that fan maybe support is going to dwindle a little bit because they're just like, this guy just doesn't win big matches. And so far, even when he's lost some of the big matches, the fans have still been invested. They've still been okay with that. But if he loses again, and let's say that Seth Rollins wins, El Grande Americano wins, someone else wins, then once again, LA Knight is kind of painted as this guy who just cannot win the big one, right? And so, to me, this is kind of a must-win scenario for LA Knight because this gives him a fresh start, which could either be going back to SmackDown and maybe something with John Cena or someone else, or it could be maybe having the opportunity to cash in on someone on Raw. Could Gunther beat Jay on Monday and LA Knight cashes in on Gunther? Then all of a sudden you've got chaos everywhere. What's Seth Rollins going to do? What's Jay going to do? Gunther, LA Knight, there's a lot that could happen there. But for now, to me, something to think about, as LA Knight, to me, probably looks like the second favorite behind Seth Rollins right now when you look at just the way this thing could play out. But I think he needs it more, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's not the obvious choice because he's lost this match twice in a row, but could it be more obvious that he's the guy that probably needs this the most to catapult himself into a different stratosphere that maybe he's not been into yet. And yes, you could kind of reward LA Knight for being the guy who's just stuck around, stayed over, pretty much gone out and do what you need to do. And not to mention the potential feuds you could have in the future if LA Knight were to win that championship. A Drew McIntyre I could see coming back and certainly setting his sights on an LA Knight. But like we said, probably when you look at it, the short-term booking would probably lead us towards John Cena, Cody Rhodes in a rematch. The Jay stuff on Raw, certainly Gunther's been attached. Sami Zayn could be there, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and so forth. A lot going on. It's a pretty crowded world title scene right now. So if you do give LA Knight the briefcase, it may be something where it's a bit of a long-term play, but that may not be the worst thing as we kind of get through this other stuff after SummerSlam and everything like that. So a lot of options in play here, this men's Money in the Bank ladder match. But I think LA Knight may be the person that you look at and say, here's why he has to win, because it does feel like a potential turning point for him if he can do it, and it also may feel like a turning point if he doesn't, because then he comes up short yet again. So you guys let me know what you think. You already have in the predictions video. What do you think about LA Knight winning this 2025 men's Money in the Bank ladder match? And if he does win, who do you see him cashing in on? Will it be now? Will it be down the road? How do you see it playing out? Always appreciate you watching. Let me know your predictions for LA Knight in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match.